So for the sake of time, I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Michael, if you could please take the roll.
Ms. Butts?
Here.
Ms. Shakarian?
Here.
Mr. Corrigan?
Here.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes,
Ms.
here.
Fryer?
Here.
And Mr. Parker?
Yeah.
The first order of business is approval of the minutes of the board meeting of 1/18/2024 and the Joint Finance and Human Resource Committee meeting of 1/16. There's no omissions or additions. I move for adoption.
It's in the organizational meeting minutes are there too.
And organizational meeting, my apologies.
Right.
Thank you, Tom.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes,
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
thank you. At this time, we have a presentation. We have our very special guest, the
Yes.
Honorable Blake Griffin, President of Cleveland City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, President.
Thank you, Madam Chair Rodriguez, and my good friend, Director Thomas, CEO Thomas, and all of the board, very good friends here. And thank you for your service for the city of Cleveland and for administering the People's University, as my good friend, former President, Mr. Venable used to say.
Right.
I'm here today on behalf of Cleveland City Council to honor two individuals who selflessly gave up their time to put forth one of the most critical efforts that I think this city embarked upon in the last year or two. And that is the Cleveland Reads program. And those two people are my good friend, my office neighbor, Connie Hill, okay? And Tom Dewey, if we could bring both of them up, and I would like to present both of them with a presentation to honor them for their work and for their hard work and everything regarding Cleveland Reads. So, and literacy is very critical and crucial to our community, and I really commend the mayor as well as Director Thomas for really, or CEO Thomas for really taking on this initiative. But these two chairs really led the charge. So I do want to make sure that I give this one, make sure I get it right first. This is, and then make sure that I'll give Tom's this, okay? And I know that people oftentimes look at these and like, is this just another piece of paper? But it's not. It's really the city's way of acknowledging critical commitments and critical investments in time and honor individuals in this city. So this goes down in the city record, and we really appreciate you and all of the work that you did. Thank you so much.
Photos, speech, photos, whatever you guys want to do.
Would the board like to get in on this? We can go around the back.
Okay, run
Okay.
back.
I love your beautiful smile.
Come on, Miss Butts.
Oh, we want another photo.
Here's a bit. Oh, be careful of the blue cord.
Watch the cords.
Okay, good. All right.
She wants us close by.
And three. 1, 2, 3. One more. Say cheese. I was hoping you wouldn't do it. Thank you.
I'm gonna let you guys get back to the business of the board. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm out front.
Thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it. Your sleeves are right there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I know Tom and Connie, you guys you have to run. You got, because we just wanted to show a little video for Cleveland Reads here.
I thought this was like, you're gonna kick us out right now.
Well, 2 minutes and then we're gonna kick you out. So.
Gotta read 1,000,000 books this year. Can we do it? Can we do it? All right, so we're counting on each and every one of you to tell your friends, tell your neighbors, give the gift of a book to make sure we reach our important goal.
said yesterday that she was from Kentucky and there were no libraries at all? I mean, is that true the whole state or just her neighborhood? I never thought of such a thing.
It's crazy. Thank you guys
Thank
so
you.
much. One more big round of applause for our co-chairs. So after she gives all her hugs and everything like that, yes, Shanice is going to do a recap of Cleveland Reads.
I am going to do a recap, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity to also be here with my colleague Jacqueline Lamb. So our objective today is to just give you a year in review about Cleveland Reads, and then she's going to speak to what's ahead. Okay, so the first slide is as such. Next slide, please. When Director Thomas and the mayor decided to do this work, they were very clear about what the vision is for the work. I believe that a city that reads is a city that succeeds. Our goal was really to raise awareness about the importance of reading literacy. That was our goal. And we also wanted to challenge the city of Cleveland to read more. So we went out and Director Thomas said, we're going to read 1 million minutes and or 1 million books. Well, I would say Marina and Erica, like by the first quarter, like March, we had surpassed 1 million minutes read. And so as Director Thomas consistently does, he challenges us to go even further. And so our goal then changed to 10 million minutes read by Clevelanders. Next slide. You just saw our illustrious co-chairs, Director Thomas, Connie Hill-Johnson, and Tom Dewey of Medical Mutual. We also had our honorary chairs, next slide, which was the mayor of Cleveland, Mayor Justin Bibb, City Council President, who just was here, Blaine Griffin, and the County Executive, Chris Ronayne. And I failed to say, Director, Chris Ronayne has also given a proclamation to the co-chairs for their work. So I'll make sure they get it. You know, it's imperative when you launch an initiative, you have to articulate what are your goals and what are you trying to achieve? Who's your core audience? And so Director Thomas said this is an all-generation reading challenge. And as you know from our strategic plan, our core audiences are our scholars, our seniors, and our strivers. And so those are the metrics that we track throughout the year. Next slide. And how did we do? So we had nearly 30,000 readers. We had more than 1.6 million books read, and we read over 10 million minutes, and 92,000 people got incentives for this work. We recognized them. They got a chance to spin the wheels, and in some cases, our branches actually went to the schools so that the kids could spin their wheels. We distributed over 400,000 books through our partnerships and through the work of Marina, who is like every week at the West Side Market, giving away books to our community. Director Thomas shared with us about the importance of having a library at home is very important as well. I'd also like to thank our knowledge office, because Nancy in particular, as she conducted a survey of our patrons so that we could understand what was the impact in addition to the quantitative metrics we have, but from a qualitative perspective, what were people saying about this campaign? Just wanted to highlight 2 areas. 96% of the people who were surveyed stated that they learned something new from what they read. That's a direct tie to the mission of our organization to be the center of learning for a diverse and inclusive community. And the last point is 92%, they said they want to use their library more. I just think that's remarkable. So that's awesome. Yes. Next slide, please. And so, in addition to that, CMSD students increased their library circulation. Next slide. Events and programs. My colleague Erica Marks led our events and programs throughout the year. I am pleased to tell you that her and her team hosted more than 115 events throughout the year, with more than 80,000 people attending those events. Here are a few slides from the events. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, that was a great one. Look at Erica over there in the and so And this was our final event. Next slide. Awesome. Anybody knows that you can't do great work without effectively communicating it, right? Marketing and communications, if I told you that our charge was to heighten awareness about reading literacy, well, we have to have a marketing and communication plan. And Tana and her team did that and did that effectively. Next slide. You can see the various people who she engaged to tell the story. Not only did we have elected officials and the director and leadership in the city, we also had regular people like me telling the story about Cleveland Reads and how important reading literacy is. Next slide. In order to do that, not only did she do that through testimonials, but look at the myriad of ways that she communicated with her team this message about Cleveland Reads. We were on TV, we were on social, we were on the website, we were on digital displays, we were doing robocalls. This was a truly, truly comprehensive marketing and communication effort to get the word out. So applause to Tana and her team for doing such an amazing job. Next slide, please. Just another slide about our Marcom efforts. Next slide. Fundraising. So with regard to fundraising, Director Thomas told the CPL Foundation that he wanted us to raise money to supplement the investment that the library was doing in Cleveland Reads. And so some of that money, which I'm going to articulate to you, went directly to the actual programs and services, and some of the money went to operations for the foundation. Anyone knows if you don't have a strong operations, you cannot fundraise for anything. And so our goal was $279,000. Next slide. And we raised, Shirley and us and Tracy and the entire team surpassed that goal, and they raised $297,000 for our annual theme and for the foundation. Thank you, Shirley. If you don't know, the common theme is I'm trying to illustrate that this was not a solo effort. This took a lot of people, Trustee Rodriguez, and I just want to make sure they get their flowers as well. Next slide. This is just some of the organizations that were represented in supporting our work. Nestle, HBN, Parker Hannifin, which we've been trying for a long time to get them, and we did, and Margaret Wong, just a few. Next slide. Overdrive, how could I not? They were our primary sponsor. Overdrive supported this work. We wanted to also have a ground game, Trustee Butts. And so what we did was, through the work and the support of the Gun Foundation, we enacted neighborhood reading ambassadors who were informal leaders throughout the community to help spread the word. And we were able to get a grant of $25,000 as an honorarium to pay them for their work that they're doing in the community to build awareness about the importance of reading literacy. Next slide. I'm also excited to say that the value of the incentives that my team brought in was over $700,000 in value. We had books galore. We had toys at the mid-year event that we did. But this was a really, really important piece of the campaign. And we look forward to supporting Jacqueline in her efforts this year with the reading campaign. Next slide. And just finally, it's just a list of our partners. I tell you, there's power in collective impact, and having all of these partners represented to do this work is just amazing. We couldn't have done it without them. And on that note, I'd like to introduce my colleague to talk to you about what's ahead.
Can I make a comment, please? And I mean, those are wonderful numbers. And I know those numbers could be higher if we included a lot of people who wanted part of this and did not live in Cleveland. There were like a little bit of jealousy. Why is only Cleveland doing this? Because this was Cleveland Reads. But a lot of people wanted to pseudo participate that were not residents here. So, and I think they did. They came, they contributed in other different ways, but they, so those numbers could have been as far as books read and everything.
Yeah, well, you know, we had a citywide campaign. We tried not to turn anyone away. And we look forward to doing more this year, to your point.
Yeah. And I'm seeing other cities who are taking heed to what we did and trying to do the same thing where they're at. So
Awesome.
you guys did a wonderful job.
Awesome.
I want to hear more.
I want to throw one other thing in.
Yes,
And I guess the Molina Foundation is the source, but the national teachers, the American Federation of Teachers, they're not on your list there. So it's,
Yes. They should be on that list, but they're not on the list, to your point. They gave over 40,000 books.
Right.
And that they contributed to that 400,000 number. And you're absolutely right. We're grateful for their support as
Okay.
well.
If you're going to be printing this or broadcasting, I just want to make sure they get on that book list too. So
Got it. Will do. Jacqueline?
So I will say, though, a big kudos to Shanice. While she's giving everybody their flowers, she certainly deserves her respect for, right? You gotta. Shanice was on a lot of calls where afterwards she would call me to pull her off the ledge, and I appreciate all that she did because she had to. She had to pull a lot of folks together on this, and it's always a challenge pulling people together, but eventually everything really started to work together, which leads us to Jacqueline.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Lamb, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Youth and Family Engagement for the Cleveland Public Library. So when I was brought in September, we began talking about, Cleveland Reads and what was next for Cleveland Reads. And we have, as you know, we have a new CEO at the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. And I believe that his goal was, if we were going to move forward in a way that we wrapped around children and families. Because if you look at our data, right, in the Ohio Department of Education, you would notice and see that our scholars are not doing as well as they could be doing in literacy and in math. And so I think that it's amazing that we all feel that we have skin in the game to ensure that we wrap around families and children to bring them up to where they should be. And so our moving forward, right, our goal is to make sure that we have something that really wraps around our young people and their families. And so I believe that our goal is to have a literacy challenge and programs that excites, engages, and encourages children and family while promoting student academic achievement. And so that's going to be the goal, but it takes a lot of work to do that, right? Because we know that we're not an institution that, teaches in a general instructional way, right? But we have to be creative in the ways in which that we wrap around children and families so they, number one, come into our branches and feel that this is a place that I know that I can get what I need, when I need it, and how I need it, but then be able to give tools and resources to ensure that we lift them up in the way that we need to lift them up. And so for this summer, we are going to wrap around our young people, and we are going to have a Cleveland Read Summer program that hopefully ignites this city to really, really not only just have programs and challenges, but really know, like, we have some things that we have to do to raise our children up. So you can go to the next slide. And so we're going to have a differentiated approach to doing this. One size does not fit all, right? Because our scholars is not one, right? They come from different neighborhoods. They come from different, parts of the community. And so we have to make sure that we wrap around them and meet their needs. And so we're going to have a differentiated approach to supporting them. And the ways that we'll do that is through an 8-week summer program, right? So there will actually be programming around social emotional learning through literacy, right? So it's an instructional way that we can feel that we can instill some things in them, but still build them up in the ways that we need them to go in literacy. We're going to have engagement metrics for not only just our young scholars that attend school, but for our families and their children who are the ages of 0 to 5. We will have recommended book lists by grade levels. So families know, okay, I know where my child is, because hopefully they're having these conversations with their teachers and saying, okay, I know where my child is reading wise, and these are some books that I can recommend, or these are books that we can read together to get them to where they need to be. And lastly, a differentiated literacy challenge. And I say literacy, I don't say reading, because not only, yes, we want them to read, we want them to come, we want them to be there, we want them in books in their hands, checking out. But we also know that there's ways in which we have to have touch points with our scholars to build them up. And so this will be a literacy challenge. And our next slide. So when we think about our summer, from June 10th to August 2nd, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, our youth services staff in each library branch will have programming for scholars. And our theme will be celebrating our ABCs: authenticity, bravery, and creativity. And this is just a breakdown of what each week will look like. Yesterday, I had the privilege of meeting with our Cleveland Read Summer Committee. And if you could have seen, we had a checkpoint meeting, myself, Lan, Guile, she is the subject librarian in the youth service department, and Anisha, we are meeting with these groups. We separated them into 3. And if you could see the programs that they developed and they shared, you would have been so proud. I think that probably was my proudest moment since I've been here, because they were so excited about creating programs. And if you go to the next slide, you will see that we're not just creating programs to create them. They are attached to the Ohio Social Emotional Learning Standards. And so when they could go back and say, this is what competency A for self-awareness, and this is what competency B to really help build them, and this is the same language that's happening in their schools, I think then we had a connection that's going to just move us that much further. And if I could just go to the last slide, this is something that we're working on, but we're not 100% there. We had a meeting with Beanstack on Tuesday to see how can we have this literacy challenge in a way where we have touch points where everyone can be engaged. And the ways in which we're going to do this is they will get points for reading books, right? They will get points for submitting writing samples. But they also will receive points for actually coming to the branch and being a part of programming, right? To actually show up and to gain that support with their children's librarian, their youth services staff. We also have ways in which our youngest scholars can participate with their families. If they attend Family Space or if they attend 0 to 3 Read to Me, they're able to serve to gain points as well, because we know that it's important for our families to have those tools. So we're excited to move forward, but we're really going to base this in the data to ensure that we have skin in the game and that we can really, truly be an anchor and a support to our school district as they try their best to get our scholars to where they need to be. And I'm so excited. And I believe that the team is excited to move this forward.
And with your happy energy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lam.
Thank you so much. Right now, due to time constraints, we're gonna go a little bit out of order.
If I could do one
Yes,
thing.
no.
Nancy Mockerson, would you introduce our professor and the group that's here today?
Sure. So we have the privilege of working with I always get the name wrong, but Cleveland State Living School.
There's been a shuffle of names, but it's the Maxine Living School of Urban Affairs. We're part of now the Living College.
Okay.
Is home to a number of different disciplines.
Professor, would you mind coming up and introducing yourself?
Sure.
And telling us about, would you come to the microphone, please? Because we want to make sure everybody who's going to see this video can understand. I had a chance to meet the professor yesterday, and we're super excited about what they're getting ready to do. So I just didn't know you guys were going to make it this quick to us, because I said, I want to introduce you guys, but thank you.
Of course, I'm happy to be here. This is a field trip with my senior capstone course students. So these are all undergraduate seniors who are majoring in one of our urban affairs major programs, be it economic development, urban planning, nonprofit leadership. We have a range of programs, but they are required to do this course to graduate. And the partner this semester is CPL, and we are working with Nancy Mock-Siren and others. We've sort of designed out this project to focus around neighborhood branches. So each student has already been assigned a neighborhood branch, and they're doing intensive analyses along different dimensions of what it means for these branches to, succeed and serve their respective neighborhoods. So we will have, in about 15 weeks, shareable project results. And there are in total 20 students over at CSU that are part of this project this semester.
What are the branches?
Yeah. What branches?
Oh my
What
goodness.
branches are you all at?
You want to share?
Harvard Lee.
I have Addison.
I have Lorraine.
What a good collection.
So thank you, for partnering with us in this way. We look forward to more, I think, beyond this semester. And we are thrilled to be able to hear firsthand all of the wonderful strides you all have been making. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. You good? So we're gonna be going out of order for just a little bit due to time constraints. So we're gonna go ahead and do the Human Resources Committee report. Trustee Fryer will be reviewing that with us today.
Excellent. Exhibit 10 is a regular employment report with 6 new hires, 4 resignations, 3 terminations, and 5 retirements.
It's exhibit 13, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yes.
Second,
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Okay. Exhibit 14 is a resolution to enter into an agreement with ERC Services Incorporated for human resources training sessions and annual employee engagement survey. Whereas the Cleveland Public Library is committed to maintaining a work environment that is free of harassment based on race, color, ancestry, religion, national origin, citizenship, sex, pregnancy, gender, identity, sexual orientation, age, veteran or military status, disability, genetic information, or any other characteristic protected by federal, state, or local law. And whereas the library's Human Resources Manual, policies numbers 460 and 480, address equal employment, discrimination and harassment, civility and bullying, and applies to all employees, including non-supervisory personnel, supervisors, managers, and executives. And whereas the Human Resources Department believes it is beneficial and a best practice for an employer to conduct periodic human resources training for managers and staff in order to educate library staff members about library policy and the need to maintain a respectful and civil workplace free of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. And whereas the Human Resources Department solicited proposals from ERC Services Incorporated, as well as a female-owned business enterprise for management training. And whereas the Human Resources Department determined that ERC Services Incorporated was the best suited partner due to preferred training topics based on a survey of CPL managers, its partnership with the law firm of Kastner, Westman, and Wilkins, and the library's past experience working with ERC on other training initiatives and employee surveys, thus making ERC Services Incorporated uniquely qualified to provide these services to the library. And whereas ERC submitted proposals to the library to provide in-person training sessions on various management topics, such as generating results and holding others accountable, and navigating difficult conversations, unconscious bias training for all employees, and harassment prevention training for new employees, as well as to administer the library's annual employee engagement survey, which services are summarized below. Whereas ERC proposes to deliver the 4 training programs to staff, provide associated materials, and to administer the annual employee engagement survey for a grand total cost not to exceed $104,036. Now therefore be it resolved that the executive director, CEO, or his designee is hereby authorized to negotiate and execute an agreement with ERC Services Incorporated, subject to the approval of the Director of Legal Affairs, to provide the above described training on various employee relations and human resource topics, as well as to administer the library's annual employee engagement survey in a total amount not to exceed $104,036 with the expenditure charged to the general fund account number, professional services, and to execute such other instruments or documents as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms of this resolution. So moved.
Second,
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 15 is a resolution authorizing wage increases for substitutes and pages. Whereas the non-bargaining unit pay structure and revised section 351 of the Human Resources Manual that this board adopted on July 6, 2021 do not provide for annual wage increases for substitutes and pages. And whereas substitutes and pages play a vital role within the Cleveland Public Library, and in recognition of their hard work, the library administration would like to extend wage increases of 2% and 1.5% to all substitutes and pages, including pages within the page 1, page 2, and part-time regular classifications who were employed by the library on or before September 1st, 2023, and who have had no discipline after July 1st, 2023 effective the beginning of the pay period that includes March 11th, 2024. Now therefore be it resolved that the Executive Director, CEO, the Chief Financial Officer, and the Chief Talent Officer are authorized to implement the wage increases as set forth in this resolution. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And lastly, Exhibit 16 is a resolution to amend the Human Resources Manual. Whereas pursuant to Section 123.1 of the Human Resources Manual, the Board of Library Trustees must approve all changes to the Human Resources Manual. And whereas the library's Human Resources Department is in the process of conducting a comprehensive review and revision to the Human Resources Manual to reflect the prevailing practices in today's workplaces. And whereas the library's Human Resources Department recommends that the Human Resources Manual be revised to include several updated sections, rescind other sections, and add one new section as summarized below. The revised and updated policies are set forth in Exhibit A to this resolution. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Library Trustees hereby approves the proposed revisions to the Human Resources Manual as attached to this resolution to rescind and revise select policies as described herein, with the updates becoming effective February 16, 2024, and instructs the library's management to be responsible for implementation and execution of the provisions of these policies and their related procedures. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bunce?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes,
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
and that concludes the Human Resources Committee.
Thank you, Trustee Fryer. Thank you. There's no other questions. Thank you, Lynn. We're now gonna move on to the top of our agenda. In regards to the president report, I just saw we did have the Glenville grand opening or grand reopening, which was, how many people were there? I think about 150.
That
It
was
was-
a great crowd, yeah.
Yes, it was, and we really did have a good time. And it's just, as they were saying while we were there, it's been a while since we had a reopening and, we've been doing a lot of things, but here we are. It was a great time had by all. But I also want to remind everyone, if your schedule permits, Saturday, 12 o'clock, they're opening up Studio 525 downstairs.
Good job, Albert.
I'm not trying to steal your thunder, John Malcolm, and I don't know if you were gonna speak on it, but wow, I got a sneak peek. And again, I don't wanna take his thunder, but what I did see briefly, wow. So, and that would be our director?
I will just be brief in the director's report and just saying, I thought one of the programs that was the most interesting that we haven't talked about was Trustee Butts led a conference on nonviolence, nonviolent coalition. They had a conference here February 1st that went really well. I just wanted to see if you had anything to add.
Well, I was very impressed that we got as many people as we did. I mean, it was from 9 till 1, on a weekday, so we weren't sure how many would come, but I think there was probably 50, 60 there.
Wow.
And at one point, we broke into 2 groups because we had this wonderful trainer who was really born in Italy, but she has been certified in nonviolent communication, who was part of it. And then Morris Urban is a Cleveland part of our committee, and he is also a certified nonviolent communication trainer. So the goal is that we said we're taking flight at the end of our whole day. We said this is our goal, is to make sure our library is a resource for people to come to prevent violence after a conflict, or even a tragedy can bring people together into a productive dialogue if they learn to listen to each other and respect each other. So especially starting with the new MLK branch, we're hoping to have the neighbors know that this is a center that you can come to and find people that will help. And I mean, all of our librarians, all of our branches have people trained in mediation already, But this is kind of just to go beyond, and, you know, Martin Luther King had work he wanted us to continue to do to build a beloved community. So that's the whole idea, is to provide a resource as an institution that goes on. So we just got started, but taking flight.
And so I really want to thank Erica Marks, who helped to put that together, because putting that together. And it was like, yeah, the committee was like, we have lots of ideas and we want to keep meeting. And I think they're going to use MLK as their starting point for the meetings in the future and start continuing to have
We all
ongoing
love
meetings.
and thank Erica.
Yeah. That's for me.
Thank you. And there are no communications at this time, so we're going to move into the Finance Committee report. Trustee Corrigan, please.
Yes, Exhibit 1 is a resolution to accept the gifts report. I should point out, Finance Committee met Tuesday and proposed all these exhibits for adoption at the full board. I'm not going to read the language of each resolution because there's so many of them, but I will read the resolve clause, and I assure you that the Finance Committee went over in detail in each one. Exhibit 1 is a resolution to accept the gifts for the month of January, whereas the board received gifts of money, library service materials, technology resources, and miscellaneous non-monetary gifts from generous citizens. Resolved that the gifts described in the gift report for January 2024 be accepted upon the conditions connected with said gifts in accordance with Section 3375.40K of the Ohio Revised Code. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 2 is a resolution amending resolution to accept a grant from United Way of Greater Cleveland for Family Space Program. Basically, the amount of the grant was increased. We originally accepted the grant on December 21, 2023 in the amount of $23,713.40. And the new number is $98,809.58 to support our Family Space Program, which exists in 2 branches.
And it's at Huff and Carnegie West, but so now we can, we have 2 full-time employees paid by, yeah, it makes a big difference. We appreciate.
So be resolved that the resolution to accept the grant from United Way of Greater Cleveland for Family Space Program that this board accepted on December 21, 2023 is hereby amended to provide that the board, pursuant to authority set forth in RC 337540K, hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $98,809.58 from United Way of Greater Cleveland for deposit into the Early Literacy Fund account 258-046-4610028801. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 3 is a resolution to accept a grant from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation to support Man Up, CLE, and Girl Power programs. Whereas Man Up, CLE is a local initiative created and led by the Cleveland Public Library since 2014 to inspire and empower young men to step up as community leaders. And whereas Girl Power, Man Up, CLE's counterpart for girls ages 11 to 17 does the same thing for young women, helping to make for a brighter future. And whereas during these one-day programs, youth engage in various breakout sessions, introducing them to soft life skills, enjoy lunch and activities, and conclude the day with a keynote speaker. Whereas the Huntington Bank has proudly agreed to sponsor both the Man Up CLE and Girl Power programs in 2024 with a grant of $10,000 made to the Cleveland Public Library Foundation. Now therefore be it resolved that the board, pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 337540K, hereby accepts a grant in the amount of $10,000 to be deposited into the Founders Fund account 203-046-46100 restricted gifts from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation to support the Man Up CLA and Girl Power programs, and hereby authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designee to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as approved by the library's director of legal affairs that are necessary and appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of the grant in this resolution. So moved.
Did I hear there were 250 young men for Man Up the
Yeah.
other day?
Do you want to
Tell
come
us
up and
more.
say a little something,
Tell
Erica?
us more.
Yeah, so the other day we had about 250 young men from various CMSD schools The keynote speaker was Don Tate, and we had an amazing time. They all received a copy of his new book, How Jerry Changed the Game, which coincides with the opening of Studio 525 Saturday. So we were very excited. WKYC came out and did a piece on the program. And so they're asking when is the next one. So we had a good
How
time.
many schools?
I would say maybe about 10, between 10 and 12 schools. All CMSD this year. Sometimes we get outside schools as well, but this year just all CMSD schools.
The coverage was terrific.
And it's just not high school, it's also the junior high crowd, basically.
Yeah, yep. It's also junior high. Girl Power, when we initially started this, we started with just teens, but the teachers love it so much they squeeze their sixth through eighth graders in as well, which we're happy to have them.
What's the next thing for Girl Power?
So we just got that agreement signed. So it'll be April 2nd. And we'll have a New York Times bestselling author. She's actually from the UK, but she'll be here in the US. So Cleveland is now a part of her new book tour. Yeah, her book is called Where Sleeping Girls Lie. And so that email is going out to schools later today.
What's the author's name again?
Her name is Faradika. Her last name, I have to get the pronunciation right. But she is New York Times bestseller. She had, I think her first book was called Ace of Spades. And so this is her second novel. And they expect it to do well. So we're excited.
Very cool.
Thank you.
So I moved. I don't know if there's a second yet.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Exhibit 4 is a resolution to accept pass-through grant from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for the continuation of the Barbershop Books program from the Urban Libraries Council. Whereas the Urban Libraries Council seeks to build directly on its long-term commitment to race equity and to the role of libraries in improving educational outcomes, and is partnering with Barbershop Books, a literacy leader for Black boys. Whereas in 2023, the library agreed to participate in a peer learning cohort and to learn how to implement local barbershop programs, whereas our project remains focused on the opportunity to strengthen current library resources and capacity to address gaps in access to culturally relevant children's literature and to increase out-of-school time reading for children in low-income households, especially boys in Black under-resourced communities, whereas the library is invited to participate again this year and the foundation was provided a $7,500 grant to continue this work. Now therefore be it resolved that the board, pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 337540K, hereby accepts a grant from the Urban Libraries Council as received through the Cleveland Public Library Foundation in an amount of $77,500 for deposit into the Founders Fund account 20304242100328001 federal aid. And be it further resolved that the Executive Director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter into and execute such agreements and instruments as approved by the Library's Director of Legal Affairs that are necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of the grant in this resolution. So moved. And I just have a crazy question I've thought of after Tuesday, Carrie, and that is, why is that account called federal aid?
Because it is grant funds from ULC through the IMLS.
Okay. All right, so it's an IMLS program that the
So
Urban
we're like a
Libraries Council.
sub-recipient of-
Right, okay, that's great. I just wanted to make sure we've made a record of that, so. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And I forget how many books or barbershops we had last year. Do you remember the numbers? Anybody?
20.
20 barbershops?
Yes, 20 barbershops.
Oh, really?
And I just want to add, one of our mobile barbershops participated in Man Up this past Tuesday. He did a breakout session and he had his mobile barbershop parked in the back on Rockwell. So the young men were able to learn about entrepreneurship, but also how his mobile barbershop is powered by solar, it's solar powered. So we're partnering with our barbershops in a number of ways.
That's great.
They were at the Cleveland Read celebration too, I think. Yeah, that was really cool.
Exhibit 5 is the next item because 4 was just approved. Resolution to accept a pass-through grant from the Cleveland Public Library Foundation for tech revitalization at the Best Buy Teen Tech Center from the Best Buy Foundation and Clubhouse Network. Whereas Best Buy Teen Tech Centers beyond their first year of operation are invited to request up to $10,000 through Tech Revitalization Grant for hardware and software upgrades, and whereas grant funds are provided by Best Buy and administered through the Clubhouse Network, whereas the Library Foundation applied for and received a $10,000 grant for hardware and software upgrades to the Teen Tech Center, which is located at Rockport Branch. Now therefore be resolved that the board, pursuant to the authority set forth in RC 337540K, hereby accepts a grant of $10,000 for deposit into the Tech Center's fund account 25704646100117779 restricted gifts from the Clubhouse Network through the CPL Foundation, and be it further resolved that the Executive Director, CEO, or his designee is authorized to enter and execute such agreements and instruments as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the terms and conditions of this resolution, which agreements and instruments shall be subject to the approval of the Library's Director of Legal Affairs. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
And we probably should, for the record, this is how many years now we've been doing this?
Since 2018.
Yeah, so the sixth year. That's great. And anybody who's not been to Rockport to see what it is, it's pretty impressive. So, Exhibit 6 is a resolution to ratify agreement for purchase of natural gas. Whereas on June 16, 2022, the board authorized the director or his designee to enter into agreement commencing November of 22 with North Shore Energy Consultings with natural gas suppliers that have the best fixed rates for terms up to and including 57 months that include a blend and extend option, provided that rates do not exceed $6.60 per metric cubic foot or 1,000 cubic feet. Whereas the library through North Energy Consulting received a quote from Infinite Energy to supply gas for that 57-month term at a rate of $5.30, and the executive director executed a 57-month agreement for that. Whereas with the work progressing on the new Rockport branch, the library asked North Shore Energy Consulting to obtain the best fixed rate from Infinite Energy LLC. As of June 22, the natural gas contract applied only to those branches receiving the previous gas of June 22, 2022. Whereas Infinite Energy provided quote to supply natural gas service for a 41-month period beginning March of 2024 at a rate of $5.30 per 1,000 cubic feet, which the library accepted on January 26. Now therefore be resolved that the board hereby ratifies the agreement entered into by the library on January 26, 2024 with Infinite Energy at the rate of $5.30 per 1,000 cubic feet for a 41-month term effective beginning in March 2024. So moved.
Second.
This is basically getting the same discount or effective rate for the reopening of the Rockport branch is the short of it.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Exhibit 7 is a resolution amending the master planning agreement with Bialowski and Partners Architects. Whereas on June 19th, 2018, the board entered into agreement with Bialowski and Partners for the master plan for a fee of $781,904. Whereas the board on February 21, 19 authorized an amendment to that agreement in the amount of $92,290. Whereas on June 14th, the library made the final payment due and expended the total amount of $845,474.15 and closed the purchase order. And whereas the administration finds it necessary to conduct a review and update of the facilities master plan Group 2 projects, including review and update of the Group 2 deferred maintenance backlogs, validating and modifying the scope of the improvements, new construction cost estimates, and prioritization and sequencing. Whereas Bialowski is proposed to complete the above services for a total negotiated fee of $117,100, which includes a fixed pre-review fee of $79,400, a budgeted post-review fee of $37,200, and an allowance of up to $500 for reimbursable expenses, with the administration of this board finds fair and reasonable. Now, therefore, the board authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designee to execute an agreement to the master planning agreement with Bialowski and Partners Architects LLC in an amount not to exceed $117,100 for the Facilities Master Plan Group 2 update, bringing the total contract price to $962,574.15 upon such terms and conditions as are approved the library's Director of Legal Affairs and such other documents as are necessary appropriate to effectuate the amendment in accordance with this resolution, with the expenditure of $117,100 being charged to the general fund account 121-00053-53710 professional services. So moved.
I have a question. Just anticipating the new business in South Brooklyn is part of our group 2. Will Bioloski be part of some of those anticipated conversations
Well,
with the CDC?
it's not really clear where those discussions are going to go. Covered in Exhibit 17 regarding discussions with the Community Development Corporation. So they
Yeah.
will, if that happens on a timeline that will support it.
Mhm.
I have an inkling that the conversations with the CDC might play out over months and
Yeah.
months. And so the Bioloski might rely on the deferred maintenance reevaluation and
Right.
based on our existing footprint.
So why do some have blue stars after them and some don't?
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're looking
On
at.
this list of all the branches for group 2,
Oh, and in the proposal.
oh yeah, some
Yeah.
have a little blue star after
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Some,
Are
the
those
ones in the
ones
blue
to go
star,
first?
the ones in the blue star are the ones where we think there might be a little extra work, where the scope that was initially proposed in the FMP might need to be revalidated
I hear
or
ya.
reconsidered.
And why am I drawing a blank when I read maintenance facility?
The maintenance facility was a legacy function that existed at Woodland. It's been temporarily relocated to Lakeshore. So it's basically the library's
Okay,
maintenance
that's what I
garage and shop
figured.
spaces.
Where all the trucks are.
Figured it had something to
Right.
do with Woodland and
Right.
Relo. Yeah.
So it's displaced from Woodland, it's temporarily at Lakeshore, and while we consider the long-term future of Lakeshore, we anticipate there may be a need for a
Right.
dedicated maintenance facility.
Thank
Where
you.
I'd like to see that go is on Woodland across Griswold Avenue South, which would be property we'd have to acquire from the land bank, but that's going to be sussed out when we work with the
Okay,
planner.
that's interesting to know too. I thought there was maybe. Uh-huh. Thanks.
And the vote, Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Harper? Yes.
Exhibit A is a resolution amending project budget for the new Martin Luther King Jr. branch. On February 15, 2022, the board approved a total project budget for Martin Luther King Jr. branch, which budget was amended again on October 20th, 2022, and May 16th, 2023, and December 21, 2023, as shown in Exhibit A to this resolution. And whereas the administration recommends that the project budget be increased by a total of $530,000, which amount consists of budget increases of $156,000 for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and $374,000 for the owner's construction contingency. Whereas the board previously approved the Eighth Amendment to the library's agreement with architect Jay Kurtz on December 2023, reallocated $155,750 from FFE budget to the architecture and engineering fees budget in order to pay for the additional services with Jay Kurtz. And this resolution will restore that amount back into the FFE budget. Whereas the increased owner's construction contingency budget is needed to cover the cost of change orders resulting from design omissions and library request enhancements, including additional interior lighting fixtures, security system augmentation, which is mostly additional cameras, electrical and data floor box revisions, projector screen revisions, as well as to provide capacity to address future unseen conditions during construction. Now therefore be it resolved that the board approves the total project budget for the new MLK branch project as set forth in Exhibit A to this resolution, which expenditures shall be charged to the Construction Tax Exempt Fund 402 and/or the Construction Taxable Fund 403. So moved.
Second.
I might point out that at Finance Committee, we talked about the progress on this and significantly why we did the switcheroo to compensate, and we need to put back the FFE budget that we required the additional work from the architect for. And the contingency budget amendments are just good, sound practice so that we can handle. When you build a project this big in this unique a way, meaning all the private housing that's above the space, we've run into a lot of things that were not necessarily anticipatable. And these movements are appropriate. Also, for those who do look at the project budget, remember that more than 5 million of this is being paid for by the developer of the private space. Combination of air rights and our selling the old MLK.
For their rights to our old space.
Right. So moved.
Second.
Ms.
Yes.
Butts?
Yes.
Mr. Perry? Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker? Yes.
Exhibit 9 is a resolution authorizing an agreement for relocation of the Lewis Stokes Swing Break Room, whereas the library published a notice to bidders in the Plain Dealer January 3rd of this year and January 17th, seeking bids from contractors to construct a new staff break room with kitchenette, vending area, and a catering kitchen in the lower level of main library to replace the staff break room currently on the 9th floor of the Lewis Stokes Wing, which is being converted to the high-density book storage under that project. Whereas pursuant to Ohio Public Construction laws, the library is required to provide prospective bidders with an estimate the total cost to work may not exceed 120% of it, and the value of the contract awarded may not exceed 120% of such cost. Whereas the library estimates the total cost for the construction of the new library break room to be $1,123,506. Therefore, the maximum value of the contract to be awarded cannot be more than $1,348,291.20. Whereas the library received sealed bids for the construction of the new break room from the prospective bidders at noon on Monday, February 12th, and the administration is in the process of reviewing and evaluating the bids in order to determine which bid is the lowest responsible bid as required by the code. Whereas in order to permit the break room project to proceed on schedule, the administration requests that this board authorize the library to enter into a contract with the bidder who is the library determines to be the lowest, most responsible bidder, not in excess of the number mentioned above. Resolved that the board hereby authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designee to enter into an agreement with the bidder whose bid the library determines is the lowest responsible bid, subject to the approval of Director of Legal Affairs for the construction of a new staff break room in the main library for the total cost not to exceed $1,348,291.20. The expenditure being charged to the Building and Repair Fund 401 using project code 19901, and be it further resolved that the contractor entered into will be presented for ratification by the board at their next regularly scheduled meeting. So moved. And of course, the biggest chunk, or one of the biggest chunks of this, is adding a catering kitchen, which will make the Stokes Wing much more usable for events than it has been in the past, when we have to have outside kitchens in effect involved. And also, remember, as you look at these prices, the amount of money that's been saved by the intense storage, or the high-density storage project that's undergoing, which means the break room has to be relocated. But the savings that were originally done when we built this building to make those floors capable of having high-density storage more than pays for this move of the break room. And so I'm grateful for the wisdom of past boards, of which I happen to be part of.
We're just grateful our 9th floor can hold all those books.
So moved, anyway.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
I didn't want to cut you off, John, but I covered what you were going to say mostly, didn't I?
I thought we mentioned this briefly at the Finance Committee earlier this week, but since it was a public bid opening, I think I can share that we have received 6 bids. The 3 apparent low bids are all being scope reviewed by our technical staff, but the 3 low bids are all below $925,000. So we had estimated $1.1 million. So I do expect when we ratify the project budget next month, there will be some substantial savings from what is in the approved resolution.
That's great. All right. Exhibit 10 is the resolution selecting and ranking the most qualified architect firms and authorizing negotiation agreement with the top-ranked firm for the main library and the Lewis Stokes Wing fire alarm replacement project. Whereas the library placed an ad in the Plain Dealer on January 3rd and January 10th this year announcing its request for statements of qualifications from professional design firms to provide criteria architect services in connection with the Main Library and Lewis Stokes Wing Fire Alarm System Replacement Project. And whereas on January 31, statements of qualifications were submitted to the libraries by two firms, Moody Nolan and Tech Inc. Engineering and Design. Whereas the selection committee was informed to evaluate the statements of qualifications and to select the firm considered most qualified, the committee met and selected the fire alarm project designee to be Tech Incorporated Engineering and Design. And whereas the selection committee recommends that the two firms be ranked in the following order, with the first being the most qualified, Tech Inc. Engineering and Design with Bostwick Design Partnership, and Moody Nolan with Osborne Engineering. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the recommendation of the selection committee for the fire alarm project, and be it further resolved, the board authorizes the executive director, CEO, or his designees to enter into negotiations for an agreement with Tech Inc. Engineering Design in accordance with the requirements of the Ohio Revised Code, which provides, among other things, that if the library fails to negotiate an agreement with the highest ranked firm for a price that is fair and reasonable, it shall terminate negotiations with the highest ranked firm and enter into negotiations with the second ranked firm. Be it further resolved that upon the completion of negotiation, the executive director shall submit the agreement to this board for final approval. So moved.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Flynn? Yes.
Exhibit 11, a resolution entering into agreements and/or establishing funding requests, telecommunication services for the E-rate funding year 2024, which is July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2025. Whereas the Schools and Libraries Program of the Federal Universal Service Fund makes discounts available to eligible schools and libraries for telecommunication services, internet access, and internal connections. Whereas the Cleveland Public Library is eligible to participate in the Schools and Libraries Universal Service Discount Program. Whereas on January 22, 2024, the library filed an FCC Form 470 description of services requested, and a certification form is required for participation in the discount program. The posting of FCC Form 470 begins the 28-day competitive bidding process. Resolved, the board authorizes the library management to pursue all possible discounts available through the Schools and Libraries Universal Service Discount Program, and to establish funding requests by filing the FCC Form 471, including those in excess of $75,000. Be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the Executive Director, CEO, or his designee to execute agreements subject to the approval of the Director of Legal Affairs for telecommunication services requested, including those in excess of $75,000, to be charged to the object code 53210 telecommunications. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
And Carrie, just for the record, the past discounts this E-rate program in a typical year has saved the library how much money would you estimate?
We just started filing for Category 2 services in 2021 when we became SIPA compliant with our construction projects. But since I've been working on this since 1998, we have received like $5.9 million back in E-rate funds, and we have like $578,000 outstanding right now that funds have been committed, but we haven't requested yet.
I just wanted to do that because people forget how significant it is that the ordinary work we do to maximize the return on the taxpayer dollar
Yeah,
is
if we're
ongoing.
eligible for the telecommunication services, we get a 90% discount.
It's worth applying
Yeah.
for.
Yeah. Which is really just our bandwidth right now.
That's great. Exhibit 12 is the second amendment to the year 2024 appropriation, whereas the code section 5705.40 provides for the amendment of appropriation measure, whereas the aggregate of all appropriation classifications does not exceed the total amount submitted to the County Budget Commission. Now therefore be it resolved that the sums indicated on the attached second amendment to the year 2024 appropriation schedule be approved. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Yes.
As usual, this amendment means we took into account all those grants we talked about in earlier resolutions today. So, the rest of the Finance Committee report consists of the Fiscal Officer's report, Report A, The report on investments, Report B, report on conference and travel expenses, Report C, report on all vendor expenditures, Report D, and report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency funds for the branches in the Group 1 projects, Report E, and report on expenditures made from the owner's contingency funds for the high-density shelving project, Report F. Those are all for the last month for January of 2024. That concludes the Finance Committee report.
Thank you, Trustee Corrigan. Before we move into the community service report, I need to go back in regards to the Human Resource Committee report on the regular employment report. I'm going to change my vote and I'm gonna abstain.
So noted.
That's Exhibit 13. Thank you. We are now gonna move into the community service report. Trustee
Yes.
Parker, please.
Report G is the monthly activity report, great information charts for perusal. Let's go right into the building status update, followed by advocacy, foundation, and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thanks, Trustee Parker. So the buildings report really shows our routine maintenance on the physical plan of the library. A couple of facilities master plan updates that I'd like to provide. Thanks to everyone who participated in the Glenville groundbreaking ceremony a few weeks ago. That was on Saturday, and then the work started that Monday. So we went right from breaking ground ceremonially to breaking ground literally. The construction fence is now up and the demolition is ongoing. We're really looking forward to reopening the reimagined Glenville campus in the spring of 2025. MLK, as the director alluded to, is over 60% complete now. We did conduct a staff tour with the MLK branch staff earlier this month. So we're generating some internal excitement in terms of how we're going to operate and run the new branch. Looking forward to that. We received, since we last met, the certificate of occupancy on the Brooklyn campus. So that was also good news. And the grand opening is now scheduled for noon on Saturday, March 2nd.
Thank you.
As it relates to the foundation, our three areas, I would say two areas that we're keenly focused on is the March 7th board meeting that's coming up. So we have committee meetings that we're prepping for that, in addition to Library Giving Day, which is in April. And so we want to kind of condition the landscape with our community that it's coming. And so we're excited about that. As it relates to advocacy, it was really good to see Representative Brennan coming yesterday and Bride Rose Sweeney in the audience to support the director and the forum. We continue to watch legislation and look for any indicators of legislation that will impact us. That's it for me.
I did have a question after yesterday. When is the Columbus Lobby Day that the Ohio Association organizes?
Yeah, it's going to be in April. I can get you the exact date, but it's coming. You coming?
Yes, I would love to. So let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Trustee Parker.
Good afternoon, everyone. Our DI report as it relates to people, particularly our patrons and staff. Our Rainbow Readers, ERG, will launch a spring photography program for local high school students in partnership with the LGBTQ Center in April of this year. Our lead photographer will be Bridget Caswell. Our Cultural Diversity ERG has begun planning for an Eid celebration in April at our Eastman campus for our staff and patrons. And our Women's ERG Talk on Tuesdays is planning a lunch and learn for staff for Women's History Month with special guest empowerment coach, Dr. Coletta Mack. Also, I'd like to invite you all this evening to our MLK branch where we'll be having our Black History Month event entitled The Crown, the Art of Black Hair. We will have our special keynote speaker, Dr. Tamika Ellington, as well as our special guest presenter, Dr. Angela Che. So hopefully you all can make it. It begins at 5 p.m. Thank you.
And that will conclude the community services report.
And we lost
our
chair for a moment.
I think we don't have in that old business, we go to the new business.
Yeah.
Yes.
John, will you?
So I think this is Exhibit 17, resolution authorizing CPL to explore options collaborating with Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation for improvements to the Old Brooklyn branch. Trustee Shakarian, thanks for your question regarding how this will synchronize with the ongoing work for the Group 2 projects, of which South Brooklyn is a Group 2 project. So as described in the resolution, the CDC approached us in 2020 into 2021 about the potential for a joint development agreement, which would reimagine the neighborhood, the CDC's parcel immediately south of the library for a combined project along the lines of MLK. Those conversations were fairly substantive, and to the point that the CDC had a development partner, but they backed out due to economic considerations at the time. So we've really just been in a conversation level since then. Recently, they've reapproached the library about the potentially for a joint development, but if not a joint development, maybe along the lines of a shared parking arrangement or a shared green space development between the two parcels of a property. So this is a fairly broad resolution that commits the library to nothing specific, but just to an ongoing dialogue as we consider potential courses of action and for the board to approve that dialogue to continue.
What's the size of their lot or their property?
In acreage, I don't know.
No, I just mean to compare it to the size of our property.
Larger.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's almost twice as much property.
It is, yeah. And flat iron
Right.
configuration, so they've got the fat wheel.
So, yeah, it just makes sense to keep looking at possibilities there, so.
Yeah, I wonder how this relates to the article in the Plain Press about they had a whole story about people's reactions to different proposals, but I don't know how that relates to us. I'm just curious if you know about that. Well, we'll explore is what we're gonna do.
No, this is very positive.
Somebody should read the resolve clause though, so that we don't upset Brian that we're not doing this anymore.
Be it therefore resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Cleveland Public Library hereby authorizes Executive Director, CEO, or his designee, the Chief Operations Officer, and Director of Legal Affairs to explore the issues and options related to collaborating with Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation for improvements to or redevelopment of the South Brooklyn branch. So moved.
Second.
Ms. Butts?
Yes.
Ms. Shakarian?
Yes.
Mr. Corrigan?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Fryer?
Yes.
And Mr. Parker?
Thank you for that. We actually had one public comment that was submitted. We will go ahead and include it in the minutes, but it was regarding Tech Central. They have responded to the patron as far as their request. But that was all. If there are no other questions or anything, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Sorry about